All right, we will call the City Council work session for May 5th, 2025 to order. And our City Manager, Miles Braswell, will go over the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. Tonight for consent, you have 9 items on the list here. Agenda item B1 is the approval of the regular meeting minutes from April 7th, 2025. Agenda item B2 is 2 sets of minutes, one from August 19th, 2024, and one from March 17th, 2025. Item B3 is approval of 2 sets of minutes for the special meetings that were held on August 10th, 2024, and April the 7th, 2025. Item B4 is the approval of closed session minutes. There are 5 sets of closed session minutes that you should have at your desk. These minutes are for October the 7th, 2024, November 4th, 2024, January 6th, 2025, January 30th, 2025, and April 7th, 2025. Consent item B5 is an update to the City of Belmont Ordinance Chapter 32 from the Fire Department. It updates the organizational structure and reflects the change to the current practice within the department. And so that changes, previously the ordinance had that there was volunteers that would select the chief. Given that we're in the hiring process now, we need to change that to state the city manager is the hiring person for the fire department chief. Item B6 is the approval of a capital project fund ordinance for the ball field lighting capital project. This project was already bid. You all have approved it for ball field lights at Davis Park, tennis courts, Rodden baseball field, and Lower Reed Park. Given this as it's going to expand fiscal years, we need to create a capital project ordinance, so this is the ordinance for that request. Item B7 is the acceptance of streets in the Plain South Shore Phase 2A Map 4 neighborhood. Our staff has gone through and inspected these streets, and all are in compliance with city standards. They're Lanyard Lane from lot 204, 208 to parcel D/E, Willowbank Lane from Lanyard Lane to lot 219 from 251, Lake Forest Drive from Lanyard Lane to the common open space and tract D. Item B8 is the approval of an ordinance to close a portion of Glenway Street on multiple dates for the 2025 Belmont Farmers Market. This is just in case there's inclement weather in Stowe Park. They would like to move the Belmont Farmers Market to Glenway Street, and there's various dates listed inside the ordinance. I'm not going to read them all out, but they're all listed in there, and also a map that shows the street closure area. And item B9 is a request to rescind the annexation ordinance for Lakeview Farms, which was adopted on December 16th, 2024. This ordinance is being rescinded due to an incorrect effective date. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll turn it back over to you this time for the questions.
Thank you, Miles. Any questions on any consent agenda item? I just had one with the road closure ordinance for Glenway Street. Obviously, that's only, those dates would only be in the instance of inclement weather. We're not going to necessarily be closing Glenway Street any or every day, only when there's inclement weather and they need to move from Stowe Park. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, if there are no further questions, then that would conclude the work session. And so I will call the regular meeting of the Belmont City Council for May 5th, 2025 to order. If everyone will please rise, Councilman Jason Rumfeld will lead us in the invocation.
Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together for this important meeting to conduct business on behalf of the city and our citizens. We thank you for your provision and blessings upon our community and our staff who spent time preparing the presentations that we will hear. We pray that you continue to keep our community safe, and we thank you for the diligent hard work of the brave men and women who are tasked with ensuring our well-being. We ask for your guidance as we consider the matters before us tonight. We pray all of this in your heavenly name. Amen.
Please remain standing as the City Attorney Parks Wilson leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Should I go over the mission statement up there? Belmont will be a vibrant, multi-generational community that incorporates small-town charm and heritage with an entrepreneurial spirit. And our mission statement is the City of Belmont provides visionary leadership and high-quality city services to create a community of choice for our residents, visitors, and employees. And we have a number of core values that we are going to continue to practice today, including practicing mutual respect towards council members and city staff, among others. So thank you for that slide. We will begin. We have a number of recognitions and acknowledgments. First, we have the North Carolina Main Street Award Champion and Business Designation recognition. And for those awards, I would recognize our Downtown Director, Cassidy Lackey.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. We were not available to do this in April, so I just wanted to take a moment in time to formally recognize some good work that the Belmont Main Street program was recognized for, as well as a champion that was designated by the North Carolina Main Street program at our annual state conference back in March. And I will let the award videos do the talking. So this video is under 2 minutes, but it gives you the description of our East End facade renovation program that we received the award for.
Transformation project in downtown Belmont exemplifies a successful collaboration between local government and the private sector, aimed at revitalizing and preserving the area's historic character. In the mid-20th century, many property owners in East Belmont installed prefabricated metal slip covers, which concealed and damaged original architectural details. This sparked a community-driven desire to restore the district's charm. Restoration efforts required extensive collaboration, led by the Downtown Belmont Development Association, DBDA, and a former downtown director. Together, they secured a $25,000 grant from the Duke Energy Foundation, supplemented by $15,000 from the DBDA's budget. The City of Belmont provided an additional $75,000 to its Main Street Facade Enhancement Grant Program. Bauer Trauser Construction offered in-kind services, working with property owners to restore 6 historic facades. This collaborative approach led to the successful execution of the project. The project transformed East Belmont, fostering economic growth and community pride. It attracted new businesses, increased foot traffic, and boosted property values. Notably, 1 new restaurant opened and another business relocated to the revitalized area. This initiative highlights the transformative potential of public-private partnerships, inspiring other communities to balance historic preservation with economic development.
So in the chance that the volume was too soft, that was a great public-private partnership for that category, for that project. And then lastly, our 2024 Main Street champion is here with us tonight, Susan Martello. I don't know if you want to join me or not. You don't have to. Susan is currently our board chair and chair of our promotions committee, and we recognized her, and as well as the state, at the conference for being our Main Street champion. So I'll let the video tell you all about her achievements from this year.
Susan Martello, Belmont. Susan Martello has been an active and integral member of the Belmont Main Street Advisory Board and the Downtown Belmont Development Association Board since their inception. Since her family began volunteering with the Main Street program in 2021, Susan has continually expanded her involvement, progressing from volunteer to board member and eventually the co-chair of the promotion committee. As a veteran of the Army and Air National Guard, Susan exemplifies dedication and service. She initiated impactful projects, including a card-making booth for service members at Belmont's Garibaldi Festival and an annual flag display in Stowe Park for Veterans Day. In 2024, she spearheaded the creation of a new Veterans Day celebration to honor those who have served. Susan has also contributed to various subcommittees and special projects, including Moonlight on Main, Soundtracks Music Festival, Sip and Speak, and Slow Art Day. Collaborating with Belmont's 2023 Main Street champion, Amy Bossert, and drawing inspiration from her time in Germany, Susan led the launch of the first Bavarian Holiday Fest in December 2024, a new tradition for downtown Belmont. For her unwavering commitment to the Belmont Main Street program and her dedication to bringing vibrant downtown initiatives to life, Belmont is proud to honor Susan Martello as its 2024 Main Street champion.
Thank you guys for letting me take a moment to formally recognize Susan for her hard work and then for everyone that had a hand in the facade renovation project.
Thank you. Congratulations again to Susan and the Main Street program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Belmont Housing Authority Board of Commissioners and staff to recognize Mr. Joseph Scott Helms for his 39 years of service with the Belmont Housing Authority. And for that, I will recognize Erica Bobo here. Yes, Director Erica Bobo. And others. At all, yes.
Tell them all to come on.
Everyone who wants to come up, may come up.
We have the majority of our board here, and we have Scott Helms. Scott has been with Belmont Housing Authority for 39 years. We want to present him with a service award for his 39 years with Belmont Housing Authority. And we also want to present him with a check of appreciation for $500.
Thank you.
You're welcome. He's I've worked with Scott for the last 15 years, and he doesn't like being in the spotlight, but I have to say he has been. I don't know what I would do without him at Flowers Court. I mean, Belmont Housing Authority, we would be lost without him. So, and I don't know if the board wants to. Picture. Oh, that would be great. Thank you.
One, two, three. One, two, three.
Thank y'all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And I want to try to keep him for, as long as I can.
I can go now.
I see you in the morning.
Thank you, Erica. All right, finally, for our recognitions and acknowledgements, we have, excuse me, a proclamation recognizing May 2025 as National Bike Month, which I shall now read. So, whereas since 1956, the League of American Bicyclists has celebrated National Bike Month during the month of May. And whereas, according to the National Household Travel Survey, 40% of all daily trips are 2 miles or shorter in length, and biking is a viable transportation alternative to driving, particularly over those shorter distances. And whereas high-quality bicycle facilities, together with pedestrian infrastructure and other transportation network improvements, can help Belmont achieve its goals for providing mobility choices by expanding the availability of accessible transportation alternatives for all people. And whereas the bicycle is an economical, healthy, convenient, and environmentally sound form of transportation and an excellent tool for recreation and enjoyment of Belmont's natural beauty and historic community. And whereas in its adopted plans for land use, mobility, and traffic safety, the City of Belmont is committed to improving safety for bicyclists and pedestrians throughout the community and expanding the bicycle network. And whereas biking in our community is a valuable option for a healthy and family-friendly activity and a safe environment for bicyclists to support economic development and local businesses. And whereas the city recognizes the efforts from the Belmont Planning and Zoning, Police, and Parks and Recreation Departments in promoting the benefits of biking as a form of healthy recreation and as an active mode of transportation to commute to school and work. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the month of May 2025 is hereby designated as National Bike Month in the City of Belmont in an effort to encourage all within our community to rededicate ourselves to enjoying the benefits of biking and ensuring the safety of bicyclists in our community. Adopted this 5th day of May 2025. So, all right. It is now National Bike Month. Okay. With all that out of the way, and I will preface this, Councilman Zooks had an emergency and had to leave, so he is not with us tonight, and we hope to see him at the next workshop. But I will entertain a motion to set the agenda.
Motion to set the agenda?
Motion made by Jason, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The agenda has been set. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, and I will also reflect that there were some non-substantive edits made by me to some of the minutes and other documents in the consent agenda. Okay. Motion made by Jason, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the consent agenda is unanimously adopted. That leads us to public comment. We have a much shorter list this month than last month. We have one person signed up. We have our rules up here. Please, you have up to 3 minutes on any topic. Please state your name and address. Be respectful of City Council staff and the public. This is a time for speakers to bring a matter to the mayor and City Council's attention. There is not typically discussion or debate about items, but if warranted, the mayor and City Council may ask city staff to follow up with the speaker on his or her concern. For public comment, we have Brandon McGaha.
Hey, thank you. My name is Brandon McGaha, and I work for a group called the Southern States Police Benevolent Association. We represent about 72,000 law enforcement officers in the southeastern U.S., 17,000 in North Carolina, and we represent the majority of officers with the Belmont PD. And I'm actually here to say thank y'all for the efforts y'all put into this budget to recognize what they do and the unfortunate market y'all are in, where it's kind of like every department's just fighting for to raise their pay over a certain amount of cops that are in the area. But I've been watching y'all's workshops, and y'all are very attentive and great. Your manager and chief have been great, and your city attorney been great for meeting and speaking with us. So again, I just want to thank y'all for your efforts, and the officers have recognized it, and they're very appreciative too. So thank y'all.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment, general public comment. So that brings us to item C2, fiscal year 2025-2026 proposed budget. And our city manager, Miles Braswell, will present that topic.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Pro Tem, and Council. Tonight, I'm going to really read to you. I've given you the budget highlights inside your balanced budget packet that was delivered to you all this past Friday. Given that we've had various meetings in April to discuss the budget, but it really started back in January when you all adopted the budget calendar, which led us along the path to get to this point today. I'd also like to thank all the department heads, all the staff, Jared Piles, our finance director, and Kevin Kraus, assistant city manager, who helped prepare the budget in this process. Everybody did a great job. Thank you all, council members, for giving us good advice and direction as we put it together. So, going to the table that you have on the first page here, you can see that last year we had an adopted budget of $22.8 million for the general fund. The proposed balanced budget is $25,796,545. For the water sewer, last year's adopted was around $10.3 million. This year's balanced budget for water sewer fund is $10,424,042. And for the stormwater fund, the adopted budget last year was $770,200. This year's balanced budget is proposed at $1,096,642. Going to the second page, I'm just going to go down the list of the general fund highlights here. We plan to maintain the current tax rate of 0.455 per $100 value. I did point out that 1 cent on the tax rate is $325,413. The ad valorem revenues are estimated to increase this fiscal year by about 6% over the previous fiscal year. In the unassigned fund balance discussion during last Monday's meeting, we were instructed that they would like to balance the budget using $488,310. That's the amount that we would need from unassigned fund balance. As you heard from the discussion last week, $442,000 of the salaries plus benefits for increasing the sworn officer salaries by $7,000 across the board. The remaining difference between that $488,000 and $442,000 is $46,310. Combination of several factors there. We did remove the requested 1 police officer and 1 code enforcement officer position from the draft budget, so those two are not included, which did free up some funds, but the draft budget from 4/7, April 7th, 2025, did consider funding the new Advanced Law Enforcement Officers Leadership Programs, Advanced Law Enforcement Officer, the ALO program. It didn't factor in that $7,000 increase across the board for eligible officers, so there's a small difference there in salaries, and you've got benefits that go on top of that, of course. The health insurance budget increased due to the addition of 8 firefighters and the addition of a part-time code enforcement position based on last Monday's meeting as well. So that's the difference between that $442,000 and $488,310 in unassigned fund balance.
So in other words, we're not filling the full-time code enforcement position that was originally proposed, but we anticipate hiring a part-time code enforcement position during this upcoming budget.
That is correct, in this budget.
Okay, and then the 7,000, I see it says across the board.
Yes.
And then it says sworn officers. I just want to make sure, is that everyone in the department as a whole?
No, it's not everybody in the department, it's just the sworn officers. So you have administrative staff, civilians, so that's not applying to their increases. It's just officers. That's the way the, if you recall the April 7th memo has sworn officers there. So it's not a full department adjustment.
What would be the difference? Do we know how many that are not sworn officers?
I think there's 5 that are not sworn officers.
Total, I think that was like 69, is that right?
56.
Departments, or 56.
So I think it's 51 sworn officers, and then you have the remaining that are civilians. And so it's not across the board because we're not adjusting other departments' administrative folks. It's only the issue was that there were, an issue with starting salaries for police officers. And so if you increase that starting salary for a police officer, that's what we're talking about, all the way up to, the top rank. So it's just the sworn officers there. That's what I understood.
Maybe I'm missing it. Is that the way y'all understood it? Yes.
Yes.
Already included everybody.
Sorry, I don't need to hold a pause on everything. I just wanna make sure we're doing right. I don't wanna agree to something if I,
The 5 admin, they were a part of the salary study as well, initially, right? So
Correct.
there's-
So you have,
that was my understanding with Alex, when I conversated with him. That it was everybody.
I think it would create an inequity in the entire city as a whole. If you started taking in administrative folks, you have various administrative people in other departments. And so, just because they work in a building, they're not sworn police officers, they're civilians. And so, if you got five people there that are adjusted, and you've got the remaining folks that are in other departments that are administrative people that are not gonna get a $7,000 increase. So that was, it would create an inequity between all the other admin staff and other departments. So, no, that was not,
That makes
if
sense.
I portrayed it that way, that it was an entire department, I
I think it's what I
apologize.
heard from Alex. I think that's the way that I understood it.
But I agree with your
As a whole.
explanation there.
Yeah,
And I
that
think
makes total sense.
kind of as we talked about, the primary issue was starting salaries. But whenever you tack on 7,000 to the starting salary, that causes compression issues upline. So by doing 7,000 across the board, you help to reduce, if not hopefully eliminate most all of that compression that would then result from 7,000 if it were just applied to starting salaries,
Correct.
right?
Is the code officer a sworn-in officer?
Yes.
That's-
No, the code enforcement is not,
So see, that would be 7,000 on. I just wanna make sure we're doing it right, and I agree with the admin, but I thought it was the department as a whole, was my understanding.
I understood it to be sworn
Okay.
officers.
Any further questions on this?
Okay, I'll move on. The police department's advanced law enforcement leadership programs, advanced law enforcement officer, ALO, that program is completely funded. There were 15 position requests from the departments when we first started. 10 were recommended by the manager after the discussion last Monday on April 28th. The police officer and the code enforcement positions are not funded, so you've got 8 positions that are now included in the budget. And they are 3 fire captains and 5 firefighters. There's a 2% cost of living adjustment, as well as up to a 3% merit in the budget for general fund employees. The employee cost positions and salary study implementations from last fiscal year are now included in department salary line items. So I point that out to say that if you're looking at the budget line item from last year as compared to this year, it's a greater percentage than just that 2%, 3% for a 2% COLA and 3% for merit. And that's given that we had a plug number last year in the budget, which was at the bottom, and so that was the salary study. So now you've applied all those increases to every department now, so I just wanted to point that out. If there's any question on that line item. the League of Municipalities Health Trust Benefits, they notified Belmont that they will no longer provide health, vision, and dental insurance effective June 30th. Hub International is now our health broker and provided an insurance quote for 8.7% overall health insurance increase. We also discussed at the council.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, that was not just applied to certain municipalities, that was statewide, right?
That's statewide.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that? Their insurance, what they've stated to us is that, insurance across the state, because they provide, insurance to various municipalities, and it was just, it had ballooned so much over the past several years that it was, not effective for them to carry on. We were told that we probably would get like a 30 to 50% increase.
And we ended up with like 8.
And it's 8.7 now, so.
We originally budgeted 15.
Yeah, just not knowing where it would come in when the April 7th, proposed budget, we had that 15% as a flood, but we got the quote since then at 8.7%. At the council retreat, there were various items that were discussed. We tried our best to fund all of them, so you can see in here that some of them are not budgeted at this point. We did include architectural professional services for the North Belmont Station and the renovation costs for the main station. So those two are combined for one architect to help us out with determining how much those renovations at the new station would potentially cost. The Parks and Recreation, we did provide for a design professional for the McLean Park, conceptual plan and cost there. For the Public Works, there was a fee increase for solid waste and recycling, and that was to get the fees and the general fund revenue at a 50-50 split.
And what was it? Was it $2 or?
It moved up. It's in the fee schedule. It moved up. I can get it for you if you'd like me to look it up.
I remember it being somewhere close.
Yeah,
It was 274, I believe is what it was.
Something I can verify it for you.
Yeah, monthly residential solid waste pickup, it was at 7, it's going to 9.74, so $2.74.
Thank you.
In the planning department, we provided for land development code update after our comp plan update is complete this year. We discussed at the retreat like various site-specific master plans. We provided a budget for just one area, one property for a site-specific master plan. In the police department, I know we discussed the Meridian Archer barricade system. That was not funded in this budget, but the police department is already looking for grants for that. So I talked to Chief last week, and they're looking in, they think they have a really good idea of one grant that they can apply for that barricade system. The next bullet point, we utilize prior year audit numbers and current year spending to more accurately reflect line items that are regularly exceeding budget to correct audit findings. So we looked at the audit last year, looked at those line items, and this year we wanted to accurately reflect those. Inside the position allotment bullet point, I have to apologize, but I didn't do a good job explaining here. It says position allotment changed from 54 to 56 due to 2 grants. This is for the police department. I didn't call that out at the beginning of that bullet point, so that is in the police department. Given that 2 grants were approved in prior years, mid-year for DUI officers, and so we wanted to go ahead and make sure that those grants were incorporated as our position allotment reflects. And so we went from 54 to 56. So that's not moving up based on anything else other than like previous grants that were approved. So the full position allotment inside your packet here is, 196, full-time employees. Last year was 186, this year's 196, just like I said, the 2 police officers from previous grants, and then those 8 firefighters. The budget percentage breakdown by department is as follows for the general fund. The police department is, 30% of our budget is for police, 18% for fire, 13% for streets, 7% for administration, 5% for recreation, 5% for the planning department, 2% for community development, 8% debt, 5% capital, and 7% for other funds. And that is the end of the general fund highlights. I'll move to the water sewer enterprise fund highlights. Of course, you all know that this fund is solely supported by user fees. There's also a 2% cost of living adjustment, as well as up to 3% merit for this year in the water and sewer fund. There's a point here that during fiscal year 23-24, a rate study was adopted by council, and the water and sewer rates were increased approximately 8.5% for last fiscal year, 24-25. As it states, the fee increase did not produce the expected revenue to fund expenses and the CIP. So the recommendation for this fiscal year is a 10.5% water fee increase and a 10.5% sewer fee increase.
So essentially 2% more than what we anticipated, because the plan, as we discussed last year, was 8.5% increase for every year for a number of years.
3 rates.
Yes, 3 years. In increasing it to 10.5%, it's ultimately 2% more than what we were anticipating.
Right. But yeah, each year there's, a projection of revenues. It's projection only, we don't really know what it would be, so, that didn't meet, what we thought it should meet, so there needs to be an increase this year.
Can you remind me if it would then revert back to the 8.5, or would it stay at 10.5 going forward, for at least for the next couple of years on the forecast?
I can't really say yet. We think that, we'll meet expenses next year, but like every single year, we have to look to see what it can boost. If at all possible, we can look at it next year if we need to reduce it, back down to 8.5. I don't really know. I don't have an idea of what it may be.
And of course, the purpose of this also is to have funds on hand for capital improvement projects, including capital improvement projects that might be necessitated as we continue to go through the results of the sewer capacity study and what improvements might need to be made there. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
But the good news is that we were able to avert one thing that had plagued this fund in years past. Is that right? Anticipating the next bullet point.
Okay, yeah. I didn't pick up where you just laying down there.
I was trying to make a segue.
Yeah, so the next bullet point, revenues were estimated to increase by less than 1% from the previous year's budget. So last year there was $1.2 million allocated from our net position, which is the general fund, similar to the general fund's fund balance, a savings account. So we had to do that last year, which is not good.
But we don't anticipate having to do that this year.
We don't anticipate doing that this year, no sir. Expenses are, of course, estimated to remain relatively flat from comparison fiscal year to last fiscal year. And we did budget $100,000 in professional services to help fund the I&I reduction services, that infiltration that we've been talking about for a year. So yeah, we're definitely doing that, and our public works director is actually receiving quotes right now to help that process out with smoke testing.
That was the smoke test, right?
With the smoke test, yes, sir. In the stormwater, so that's the end of the water and sewer enterprise fund highlights. For the stormwater fund highlights, of course, this fund is solely supported by user fees as well, and this fund is expected to increase by approximately $327,000. Stormwater did have a healthy fund balance, so we appropriated $228,642 from a transfer from the stormwater fund balance so that we can complete more capital projects that's coming near stormwater. That's the end of the stormwater for the capital improvement plan highlights. We did point out that for the next 5 years, our general fund CIP is approximately $67.5 million. And so for fiscal year 25-26, we budgeted $1.18 million for projects. Very similar for the water and sewer CIP, it's a 10-year CIP, and it's approximately $160.4 million. And so for fiscal year 25-26, $165,813 is budgeted. So like we were talking before, the revenues that we're receiving in the enterprise fund is not sufficient to have many projects this year. But I did point out that we had various projects that are carrying over from last fiscal year to this fiscal year, and which was one of them was the SCADA system, the water plant generator replacement, and the water intake generator replacement projects. And so those are the highlights. There also inside your packet is the fee schedule. You've got the fee schedule. There's various fees. You can see there's 2 columns, really 3 columns, but the last 2 columns is if we propose to change. You'll see the far right column. There's that highlighted for the fee schedule, and other various documents in there. This balanced budget is available for public inspection in the city clerk's office. And so at this point, Mayor Pro Tem, if you have no further questions and we'd like to take it along with the budget calendar and have a public hearing at the June 2nd meeting. And so then you can adopt the budget at that time. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, any additional questions for the city manager regarding the proposed balanced budget for fiscal year 25-26?
Great job.
Just make thanks to
City staff.
Jared and staff, Miles,
Yeah.
it's a big undertaking, so thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I did have one question. With respect to the fee schedule, I noticed that the charges for non-resident daily and weekly passes to the rec center are actually being reduced next fiscal year. I just was curious about that.
It's a good question, and I don't really have an answer for you, Mayor Pro Tem, but I can get it to you.
Okay.
Section 10.
Section
Yes.
10. Yeah. Third page, I think, of section 10. Like, the non-resident daily pass is proposed to go down from 10 to 8, and weekly pass from 40 to 35. So I'd just be curious, but I don't want to, you can get that answer in due course.
Yes, sir.
If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to set a public hearing on adoption of the fiscal year 25-26 budget for the June 2nd City Council meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Jason, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the public hearing for adoption of next year's budget is set for June 2nd. Thank you, everyone. Moving along to item C3, public hearing for ZA 2023-06 Crescent Development. A request to rezone a 13.68 acre site to downtown district conditional district to accommodate a mixed-use master plan community. Now, we have already opened a public hearing on this and back in who knows when.
We're still in public.
We're still in public hearing, as it was continued until this date, and as our planning director, Tiffany Farrow, will be explaining, we are going to continue this one more time, and so we will hear that explanation.
Sure, thank you, Mayor, Pro Tem, and City Council. This public hearing was originally opened back in October of 2024, and as you may recall, at that time, it was continued to this evening City Council meeting. So we are asking that we continue this public hearing tonight in order to share some information with you. The applicant has been tracking along with the city's study of our own sewer capacity and was present at the meeting where this information was presented in April at the City Council workshop. In light of this information, the applicant is reviewing the results of that capacity study and has actively been doing so since that meeting, but is respectfully requesting another continuation for 1 more month in order to allow them to make sure that their overall project proposal is responsive to the information included in that report. And so with that, you all each received a letter that's in front of you with the formal request by the developer. They are here tonight if you have any questions specifically for them, but staff is supportive of their request to continue this to another meeting in order to allow them to fully respond to the information recently presented.
Thank you, Tiffany. And I believe the city manager has been has contacted us asking us for our availability, given other things that are proposed for the June 2nd regular meeting. And it has been agreed that, I don't know whether you want to call it a special meeting or a meeting in lieu of our normal third Monday workshop, but council is available, the applicant is available, is my understanding. The county and associated individuals are also available for a special meeting on June 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m., which will be held solely to address the Crescent development. As we have had in the past, sometimes these big ticket proposals, we will have a special meeting focused solely on that so that we don't end up meeting until 11 o'clock or midnight based on the other business we might have. So I believe everyone on council has indicated their availability for that date and time here in the City Works Center. Did you have anything?
We just need a motion to continue the public hearing to that date.
So I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing in this matter until June 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Motion made by Charlie, seconded by Catherine. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. This public hearing is continued until June 5th.
Does anybody have any questions for since they're here?
I will have plenty on June 5th,
Yeah.
but none tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we have item C4, public hearing for ZA 2025-01, Residence Inn. A request to rezone a 23.5 acre site to Highway Commercial Conditional District to accommodate a 107 suite hotel on a 4.1 acre portion of the site. And I will entertain a motion to go into public hearing. Motion made by Catherine, seconded by Jason. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are now in public hearing, and I'll turn it over to Reagan Murphy to provide the staff report.
Great, thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. The case before you tonight is ZA 2025-01, which is a petition to conditionally rezone a 23.5 acre property adjacent to Claremont Hospital. The parcel ID for the property is 314377, and the applicants on this project are Warren Norman Incorporated and W&A Engineering. The property owner is the Southern Benedictine Society. The property is currently zoned as a business campus district, and the proposed new zoning is a highway commercial conditional district. The applicant is making several requests for relief from our land development code as part of the request for conditional zoning. So some background on this project. The petition covers the full parcel, which is illustrated on the screen, and in your packet, the full parcel is just under 24 acres. The proposed project would develop a 107 suite Residence Inn hotel on a 4.1 acre portion of the site on that northeast corner of Claremont Parkway and Beatty Drive, and would apply the conditional zoning to the full 23.5 acre parcel in anticipation of other future development on the site. The area is envisioned as a mixed-use district in our long-range plans, so rezoning the full site now allows us to assess cumulative impacts of additional development on the property over time, rather than considering each project on its own.
So, yeah, just to be clear, the dotted line denotes the 23.5-acre parcel.
That's right.
Okay.
And, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Just to be clear, since we're rezoning the whole parcel but asking for a conditional district, any conditions we impose would be imposed on the entire 23-acre property unless specifically designated to apply only to the residents in parcel
Yes, that's correct.
portion.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct. And the applicant, the property owner have all agreed to those considerations for this request as well. The subject property is located just north of I-85 at exit 27. Like I mentioned, Beatty Drive bounds the property on the eastern side. Caramount Parkway is the boundary to the northwest. The property is on the border of the Belmont and Mount Holly city limits. And we have coordinated with Mount Holly planning staff throughout this process to account for existing and approved development in the area on their side of the boundary as well as on ours. On the Belmont side, nearby development is primarily institutional. This property was carved out from the bigger Belmont Abbey parcel. So the Belmont Abbey College and the Southern Benedictine Monastery are nearby, as well as the newly carved out Caramount Hospital property, which is next to this parcel on your screen. And then across exit 27, again within Belmont city limits, it's primarily commercial development on Park Street and Hawley Ave. On the Mount Holly side, nearby development is primarily auto-oriented commercial. The zoning in that area is similar to our own highway commercial district. There's some civic uses as well, including the Stowe Family YMCA property, and some townhome and apartment style multifamily housing. This is a zoomed-in version of a site plan that shows just the portion that would be developed for the Residence Inn Hotel. And this is proposed to become out parcel 1 of the fully rezoned 23.5-acre parcel. The hotel will have 2 access points, one along Caramount Parkway and a new right-of-way to the kind of southwest of that portion of the parcel, offering the second access point. As I mentioned, the hotel will have 107 suites with kitchenettes, a pool, a gym, a dining area, and some small meeting spaces. The applicant is requesting relief from several land development code standards, including allowing a building square footage that's greater than 50,000 square feet. In our code, any highway commercial development that's over 50,000 square feet requires a conditional zoning process. In addition, they're requesting relief on the height of the building to be able to build up to 4 stories. They're requesting to allow parking as well as a screened dumpster in the front yard area. And they're proposing a different architectural mix of materials than what's typically called for in our land development code. Related to the point on architecture, these are the representative elevations that show the different mix of architectural materials that are being proposed. The proposal includes the allowance of EIFS materials on walls with street frontages, which that's typically not permitted under our land development code. So that's the request for relief there. And the EIFS materials include a brick-like material to maintain the architectural character with the surrounding area, as well as a more traditional EFS stucco-type material. The mix of materials has been approved by the Southern Benedictine Society as compatible with the surrounding development and the architectural standards for the Belmont Abbey area. As far as transportation is concerned, like I mentioned, there are 2 access points to the hotel site. Those are indicated on the slide on the image with red dashed lines, again including that new 60-foot wide right-of-way. The full future right-of-way is represented on the screen as the yellow dashed line, and upon full build-out of the site, that right-of-way is proposed to connect to Beatty Drive, potentially at the intersection of Caldwell and Beatty. Final alignment of that full right-of-way will be fleshed out with future potential proposed development, but at this time, the Residence Inn project will build out the new right-of-way portion of that street along the side of their proposed out parcel. And they've agreed as part of their conditions to build it to our public street standards as indicated within the land development code, so that eventually that can be taken over by the city as a public right-of-way.
I believe, if I read the materials correctly, originally you all wanted them to build it out all the way,
That's
and
right.
they said it was not possible at this time. I was just curious as to why it was not possible at this time, but will be possible at some later time.
Absolutely. That's a great question, and that's mostly due to the fact that we're not sure of the other future development on the site. So the property owner and the applicant were hesitant to burden, a portion of the site with a right-of-way, and then end up having to potentially adjust that right-of-way later, or realign it completely to fit with a different future development plan proposed on the remainder of the site.
Would that future roadway there have to have any special considerations for like emergency vehicle access? Because I can see where it's obviously a more direct route into the hospital than going down to the light there.
Sure, absolutely. From my understanding at this time, that will be studied, when we look at the full alignment from Beatty Drive up to the roundabout on Caramont Parkway. At this time, the stub out that the Residence Inn project would build with their portion of the right-of-way is compliant with our emergency vehicle access requirements. So even though they'll still have to go up Beatty and make the left on Caramont Parkway, there are turnarounds included and a stub out that complies with our, our safety requirements for being able to turn those emergency vehicles around if needed. Continuing along the topic of transportation, to Mayor Pro Tem Heffern's point, originally the site design proposed 123 rooms in the hotel instead of 107. This didn't quite trigger our TIA threshold, but it came close. Our threshold is 1,000 trips per day on average, and this triggered over 900 trips per day, though not quite 1,000. So the city required the applicant to do a transportation technical memorandum to assess the impacts of the project. Mount Holly planning staff were included in the scoping process and helped identify existing and approved development within their city limits so that we could correctly assess traffic impacts. We contracted with our city's on-call traffic engineer, Kinley Horn, to complete the analysis. And in October 2024, they determined that no additional improvements or mitigations would be required to mitigate the impacts of this project, that the existing infrastructure would be sufficient to deal with the traffic generated by this project. However, since the trip generation is very close to the threshold at that 123 room number, the applicant and the property owner have agreed to a condition of approval that will require an updated traffic study, which accounts for this project's counts as well as any new trip counts proposed for additional development when any new development is proposed on the site. Since the final design for 107 rooms was lower than the initial design of 123, we didn't redo the study because it was already found that they wouldn't need to make any additional improvements or mitigate their traffic beyond what they're proposing. But those numbers will be updated so we can have an accurate trip count at the time of any future traffic study update. Moving right along to sewer capacity. So the project is estimated to require approximately 19,000 gallons per day in sewer capacity. We consulted with the consultant team from Withers Ravenel about this project and had them run it through their capacity modeling system to assess impacts. And in dry weather, the project does not exceed our system's capacity. It's business as usual. It's able to fit within our system. During wet weather events, the lines that are serving the project, the lines immediately in the vicinity have enough capacity to serve the project, but the project sewer flows will pass through gravity mains that have distressed capacity on the way to the wastewater treatment plant. It's important to know that those lines are already experiencing capacity issues in the case of 2-year and 5-year wet weather events, regardless of the residents in project. So the project is not creating any new areas of capacity distress. I know Eddie with Withers Ravenel spoke to this a couple weeks ago during his presentation of the sewer capacity study, but ultimately this comes down to a question of the level of service that council wants to see the system provide during those wet weather events, those 2-year and 5-year
But
storms.
certainly they would be adding to a degree of distress.
Right. But they're not adding any new areas, so we just wanted to clarify.
Sure.
So, continuing along this line, Withers Ravenel has recommended a potential solution for consideration, which could be making upstream capital improvements that would limit the infiltration of stormwater into our sewer system during these wet weather events. And if council is looking to ensure that Residents Inn is not adding to those existing capacity distress issues for nearby lines, the goal would be to make repairs that would remove an equal amount of stormwater infiltration from the system. So approximately 19,000 gallons. Understandably, this is all very new information for staff and for the development team, given that the study was released just within the last 10 days, 2 weeks or so. The Residents Inn project team asked us to estimate the value of the sewer system development fees that they will be charged at the time of their zoning permit application. Understanding that these fees may change if amended by council, and they're not finalized until the zoning permit application stage. Based on the most recent plan review for this project, and our understanding of the proposed connections and their utility plans, it's estimated that their sewer system development fees would be around $54,000. So they have asked for council to consider that estimated contribution when evaluating how the project's sewer system impacts could be mitigated.
Can you hold that slide for me?
Absolutely. That one is not in the, so I believe the slides were published about 10 days ago, but this is newer information that we've received in the last few days.
But that's, they need to pay that, like regardless of the condition of the.
That's right.
So that's for a 4-inch bigger size, is it?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Based on our plan review, that's what we estimate the connection to be, but of course that would be finalized at the time of construction plans.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
So if you could, I'm assuming we have the Hampton Inn lift station and you sort of trace it down through the one red area and then into the other red area.
Yeah, so. But not on the screen. So essentially, if I can carry this with me perhaps. Here we go. Yes, so the parcel in question is up here. Yes, so this is the parcel up here. So it's not necessarily traveling from the Hampton Inn lift station. The development team is actually proposing to build a private lift station on the site that will then pump the flows through the existing lines for Caramount Hospital, if that's correct. Is that right? Yeah. Through the existing Caramount Hospital lines that were recently constructed, but this, I believe, is where they'll join into the main system. So they'll come in, cross 85, and then continue down to the wastewater treatment plant.
What's the teal line?
The teal line, so this is, I believe, a screenshot from Eddie's GIS system. So that's just him selecting the parcel that we were looking at. Yep. Yeah, I apologize for the image. It doesn't really actually include the residents in part of the site. That would be up here around the word capacity. But this is the bottom of that parcel.
Make a note of that. No one's ever thought to like take the microphone with them. File that one away. That might be useful down the
Can
road.
meander around and continue. Any questions about this, or would you all like to keep moving on?
I just, to make sure I understand this correctly.
Sure.
The parcel's up here,
Uh-huh.
and the proposal is that it's gonna travel essentially down this way and then to the red.
Gravity fed, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Uh-huh, so it will journey through those two segments of gravity mains that are currently distressed in wet weather on its way to the wastewater treatment plant. Eddie emphasized that in dry weather, it works, it's great, it's just when we start to add that stormwater and we see that infiltration into the system of stormwater during those wet weather events, that's when we start to see those issues.
And then the north Belmont was the first priority. Make sure I have my notes correct.
Sure. Looking now to our long-range vision for this area, this property falls within the adopted Montcross Small Area Plan within our comprehensive land use plan. It's designated in that pink color as a mixed-use district, which is described in our comp plan as including high-density and high-intensity land uses with proximity to transportation corridors. After assessing the proposed project, staff feels that the proposed use and location, particularly the proximity to those major transportation corridors of I-85 and Park Street or Beatty Drive, are compatible with the long-range vision and feel that the proactive approach to rezoning the full parcel at once is supportive of a future mixed-use development, with the hotel being a piece of that broader picture. Staff has also found the project to be compatible with the comprehensive plan in the areas of land use and economy. The project is found to promote land use by providing a healthy tax base and choice in services. The proposed hotel fills an existing gap in extended stay services in our community, which could be particularly useful for patients, families, and medical staff given its proximity to Claremont Hospital. And the project also helps foster a vibrant economy by diversifying the tax base and promoting mixed-use development in an area targeted for such development in our long-range plans. We wanted to just highlight a couple other conditions of approval. The full set of approval conditions, as redlined by Mayor Pro Tem Heffernan, is available to you in your packet, but a few of the most notable ones we wanted to call your attention to include that the new roadway will be constructed in compliance with our public street standards, and it will be privately maintained until it is platted as a right-of-way and dedicated to the city for maintenance and ownership. Secondly, no disturbance of trees or any other natural areas on site will occur outside of the approved site disturbance limits within the schematic plan. On my next slide, I have just a graphic to show those limits. So on this slide, the area in gray that's over the hotel is an area of disturbance, obviously for the construction of the hotel site. And then the area in red are areas where disturbance may occur as the project team constructs the sewer system on site. But all areas in green will be preserved, and that is equivalent to nearly 530,000 acres of tree canopy being preserved at this time. And then that takes me to our next condition of approval we wanted to highlight, which is any future development within this newly created conditional district would require updates to the traffic study, and that could include a full traffic impact analysis if those thresholds are triggered. It also requires an update to the tree survey and tree save requirements on the site, and all other site calculations, built upon area, impervious surface, all of that would be required to be updated at the time that any future development is proposed on the site. The applicant held 2 community meetings over the course of this project. project. One was held in January. It was a Monday lunchtime meeting at Home 2 Suites. We had 3 attendees, nearby residents, who came out to learn more about the project. And then a second meeting in March on a Wednesday evening, again in person at Home 2 Suites. Only staff and project team members attended that second meeting. There were no community members present. The primary concerns we heard at the first meeting were general concerns about traffic and the pace of development in the area. I will say residents seemed to be reassured by the proposed design, the size of the hotel, I think was a bit smaller than they anticipated, and by the extended stay format. So those were kind of the takeaways from the community meetings. And then we took this to Planning and Zoning Board on their April 17th meeting date, a couple weeks ago. Much of the conversation that evening centered on ensuring the conditions appropriately reflected the intended requirements for future development. So making sure it was clear that updated calculations would be required if future development applications were filed. Ultimately, the board voted unanimously to recommend approval of the request as modified. And those modifications included minor clarifications to the conditions of approval to specify the reference to limits of disturbance as being indicated by those limits included in the schematic plan, and to clarify that any traffic study updates would account for the hotel's trip generation in addition to any additional development's trip generation. It would add them together. It wouldn't be taken separately from the hotel. So those modifications were made per the board's request in advance of bringing the conditions to you all for consideration. The board also determined that the request was reasonable and in the public interest, and found it to be consistent with the comp plan in the areas of land use and economy, and that was also a unanimous determination. So this time, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the staff report. I'm also happy to yield my time at your discretion to a brief presentation from the development team.
Does anyone have any questions for Ray? Jason?
One question and then one point. Was the decision to go, maybe this is a question for the applicant, I'm not sure, but the decision to go from 123 units to 107, was that purely a financial consideration or were there other? Okay. I guess the other point is, I have no issues with the plan design. I like it. I think we're all excited about adding another hotel to the local economy. The issue I have is with regard to the sewer and water capacity. Even I guess in the grand scheme of things, relatively speaking, 19,000 gallons per day is not a huge number. But, when we're asking other applicants to sort of tap the brakes on commercial developments in town, I don't know how you square that. I understand that during dry weather events, there's no issue, right? But that's not the issue. The issue is during a 2 or a 5-year event and how that affects the overall system. So I think adding, volume to the pinch points that we have even across the interstate, I think it's just something that we have to give some consideration to.
I just had, do you have any?
No, that's
Charlie, Kathy, even?
No, Jason kind of took my talking point there, so we're on the same page.
Just one. So I know we were talking about it in the context of the tree save area, but it seems as though there is some disturbance already on the remainder of the site. It looked like some sort of temporary parking lot for construction.
Yes, that's right.
I'm assuming that doesn't, obviously the trees have already been cut down there for purposes of tree save, but
Right.
I'm assuming that is not a permanent feature, that whatever they decide to do can
Yes,
be done.
I assume not.
Yeah.
I don't want to speak for the Southern Benedictine Society and their plans for the property, but at least for the Residence Inn project, it's not proposed that they would be making any modifications to that.
Yeah.
They would be leaving that part of the site as is, but with the goal of that future development being a mixed-use center, I would imagine that that would be redeveloped.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
And that area is not included in that 530,000 or so acres of
Right.
tree saving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured that.
Yeah.
All right, excuse me. There are no further questions for, oh, wait, go ahead.
I'm just curious, Miles, do you or maybe Jonathan have any input on the sewer water impact of this? I know, as Charlie mentioned, our first target area for doing some of the I&I evaluation and mitigation is North Belmont, but do you have any thoughts on this, or is Jonathan, Jonathan's here?
What would be great about it, put it on pause,
Yeah.
do we?
Well, I think the whole purpose of the study was to determine where we had like the pinch points.
Mhm.
The next thing that the engineer told us to do was to focus on I&I in the North Belmont area, which would turn off the red in the lines potentially, which you could accept more flow at that point. So,
That's a months long, if not, I mean, probably at least a months long process, right?
well, once we go through, yeah, for I&I to determine if we can find where the infiltration is coming into the system. Yeah, it could take several months for us to get to that point to understand where
And
it
then you have
is.
to make the improvements.
Correct, if it's a, small fix by, like y'all were saying, a clean out plug, or, if it's a bigger issue, like we have to replace pipes or something, we don't really know. I couldn't give you like a definitive, it will take this amount of time to get to that point to know. I mean, that's the purpose of us, kind of doing the study, so we know where to focus our attention. That's what we're planning to do in that area, is to do the smoke testing.
And did you say that the applicant has been in contact with Withers Ravenel about the,
City staff has been in contact on behalf of the project.
because I know that in certain other instances, we've encouraged applicants to be in contact with Withers Ravenel to see what sort of, I guess, potential, solutions they may be able to identify to help reduce the impact of their proposed development on the system.
Yeah,
There's options available to these guys too, right?
Yeah, we've discussed internally about the process, because we just learned something from Withers Ravenel, and they're building out our model for us. And Withers Ravenel is an engineering company that we pay. If a developer comes in and has certain flows, and then they start discussing items with Withers Ravenel, we're kind of outside of it at that point, because we're not paying.
Yeah, it's a direct engagement with them.
Right, so I don't know if the applicant has reached out to Withers to engage Withers, or whether they have their own engineering firm that kind of looks at their information. I can't speak to the applicant on that side of it, but yeah, we've talked about the process that we plan to use in the future, how we plan to use Withers Ravenel data, even though our whole system is not built out. They've done the sewer capacity study, which leads into their Lucid model, and their Lucid model is going to be complete when the comp plan is complete, because they're a portion of that. They're the engineering side, the infrastructure side of that. So imagine that full model will be built out this summer.
Okay.
You call it a lucid model?
Yeah, it's Lucid. It's land use, capital improvement.
Yeah,
D.
I don't remember what the D stands for.
Yeah.
Well, and hopefully we're lucid when we're reviewing. Does, any further?
I just feel like we need a little guidance on if this is, we
Yeah.
entertain the idea, for sure, we love it. I just think that we wanna make sure we're making the wisest decision moving forward, since in the past we clearly
That was the
did
whole
not.
point of the capacity.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So maybe recommendation from Jonathan, or
John,
what his thoughts are?
And I think the purpose of the system development fee, to put that point inside the presentation, is that, that's the reason for a system development fee, that developers, as they come into the system, they help improve the city's infrastructure. And that's only the sewer side. There's also a fee associated with the water. So the 4-inch connection you've got inside of our fee schedule, you've got, the size of the water line that comes in, then you've got the system improvement amount for water, system improvement amount for the sewer. The sewer alone was the $54,000.
That's right.
You've got a very similar number to the water side as well.
That's
I think those would be fees that obviously, like you said, I believe, be due regardless. But,
Yes.
it just so happens that we have some pretty significant issues that we are having to deal with apart from that.
Yeah.
We've talked about the system development fee too internally. time, so you want to revisit that system development fee on a regular basis to make sure we're charging the appropriate amount of money to do that. But that process takes a period of time as well.
I will just note before I hand it over to Jonathan that the applicant has expressed to staff that they would be open to a continuation if you all feel you need more time or more information. So just want to put that out there, whether it's a recommendation from Jonathan and his team or more information from Eddie and his team at Withers, that could potentially be on the table as well.
Thank you, that's good to know. All right, so we have summoned Jonathan from all the way in the very back of the room. What questions do we have for him?
Just your recommendation, truly, if we need to continue this, and maybe dig a little deeper since this is 10 days fresh.
The sewer study, you're correct, is very new. We just learned the results along with you guys as well, a couple meetings ago. The system development fee itself will not change the lines on the map from red to green. It's gonna take more funding than that. It would be great if the applicant would partner with the city, come to the table with some additional funding to help us combat those issues. There are I&I issues, stormwater getting into the sewer system. There are also potentially capacity issues with the size of the pipe. There may be pipes in the overall sewer system that need to be upgraded. They could be along this route that this project would take to get to the sewer plant ultimately, and we just don't know that yet. Can we take the flow on a dry day? Yes. It may mean that we can't take another project in North Belmont if we were to take that today. If there's additional funding on the table to the city for sewer specifically, it would help us and allow us to make those improvements to also continue to grow the city.
Do you have a ballpark,
At this time, no.
something that we could try to?
Do you know how long it might take to come to some sort of estimate or understanding of these issues? I mean, I understand, the applicant will also have an opportunity to speak for themselves, obviously. But, Reagan has mentioned that they're open to a continuance, and that's great, but, if we were to do that, the point would be to continue it until such time as we have the information that we're lacking. And so, I think the city attorney would agree that you have to continue it to a date certain. You can't just hold it open indefinitely. So I think that's what we're trying to get at.
I think, in my opinion, you can look at this two different ways as far as the funding to correct the issue. You can base it on, a certain amount of money, identified amount of money based on so many gallons per day, and apply that across the board. So if you contribute 10,000 gallons a day, it equals X amount of money. That's the quicker number to get to. The more true number is gonna take more time. We would need to actually go through the smoke testing, identify what actually needs to be done in the system, and get an actual engineer's estimate on those improvements, and then they would potentially pay a proportionate share of that upgrade to the city for their contribution.
So sort of like TIA type stuff. You mitigate your impact, your
Yes.
footprint that you have on background conditions.
Or longer, yeah.
Maybe a year or so,
We would like for it to be quicker than that, but
realistically. Okay. Thank you.
So you're looking for guidance in terms of like a future date that we want to put this on the?
Well, let's hear from the applicant,
Yeah.
and then we can call back anyone that we need to.
while the applicant comes up here, I do just have a general question. Claremont Parkway, I haven't been down there. Does it go all the way to the attic?
I don't think so, I think it ends right there.
It ends at the parking garage.
Yeah.
It ends at the
Yeah.
hospital.
Is there plans for it to go all the way to the Abbey or no? Okay, no, all right. Just curious.
Okay, so let's hear from the applicant, and then we'll heard all information, and we can have a discussion. Knowing where everyone stands. please.
Social Security.
My name is Lane Norman, 2700 Southern Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina. So I am with
Rock Thrill in the house.
I'm with Warren Norman Company. So we work with Bill and his team and did the home to down across 85 in this project a few years ago. So we had a successful project with that, and we started conversations with their team on doing an additional hotel in the area. And once the hotel was announced, we realized that now was the time to kind of start looking into that. So that's where we started years ago at this point, digging into some of the details. Been working with staff for the last 2 years trying to get to this point. And so we have, yes, we started off with a much larger, I think we were even larger than 123 rooms. And after we got some initial budgets back, we realized it wasn't going to pencil. So we quickly went to, we looked at 99, went to 107, that's where we landed. And so these are some renderings that we had put together. So this was more here for kind of visualization of the EFS brick, prior to the sewer study coming out. We were wanting to describe some of the reliefs that we were requesting. And so as you see here, the lower portion of the property would have actual brick, which is where most people's focus is. And so up above that, to kind of distinguish between the EFS and the EFS brick, we threw that in there to give it a little more aesthetic look to it, but also meeting some of the Abbey's kind of intentions with some of the monastery look to it. We kind of talked through a lot of this. I won't bore you with details. This is just some more renderings of the property. And again, I know the focus will be on the sewer, but we did want to kind of touch base with, the strategically positioned. So being as close as it is to 85, we do intend to drive a lot of traffic from the airport, but our focus is the hospital. So being so close to the hospital, we feel like the traffic is alleviated from that. Picking up for business and healthcare travelers, the extended stay is always an added benefit for all involved. Supporting the college, so from the visiting professors, event attendees, hospital staff, patient families, out-of-town specialists, all that is kind of our drive and what we envision being some of our market base here. So we do intend to, obviously, as every project does, create some jobs, somewhere between 40 and 50 with full-time and part-time employees. Increase foot traffic to Belmarsh restaurants. So the hospitality in general, it always supports itself. And so the hope there is that it will thrive and help the economy in multiple regards. And then the obvious generate tax revenue, I think we mentioned previously as well. We touched on the extended stay, low traffic, just in the area. Hotels are typically quiet. You don't really have a whole lot. If managed correctly, you don't have a whole lot of issues with that. So it's a pretty promising use of land in the existing infrastructure. So this was more, not necessarily the sewer, I guess, but more on the traffic generation. That was kind of our focus when we came into this prior to the sewer study coming out. And so, we pride ourselves in not asking very often for city help in our projects. If we can't make it work on ourselves, then it just doesn't work. And so not having to, ask you guys for road improvements or any kind of thing like that. However, with the sewer, I understand that's a little bit different story. So so switching gears, that was my presentation prior to the sewer study coming out, which threw a grenade at us. But we spent the last few weeks trying to figure out how this would work. Understand that y'all would have some hesitations and issues with this, and so I did want to kind of point out we had the home 2. It is a 107 room. There are some suites. It's a similar property, but the residence in is a more extended stay than the home 2, so they're both extended stay, but residence is extended for a little bit longer. So our design on that came in, when we look back, at 12,840 gallons per day for that property. And so With that, we then went and pulled some of the water bills to get an actual usage, just to see how, you know, the engineering design stacked up against actuals. And so, they gave me 6 months worth of information. You know, the top peak of that was at 10,735 gallons per day, which is 84% of the design rate. The lower side was at 7,514 gallons per day, which is 59% of that. And the average being 8,676 gallons per day. On a 107 property, put it at 81 gallons per room. And I say that in the sense of just distinguishing. I realized that the engineer had given us 19,135 gallons per day for this project. I'm hopeful and pretty confident it wouldn't come into that. You have to account for fluctuations and all that. So did want to point that out. I had some similar numbers from the Hampton Inn. I got some actuals on that. I don't have the design specs to kind of give that realm, but it was, you know, that hotel, being that it's not an extended stay, came in at an average of 4,800 gallons per day. And so Greg did a great job explaining kind of some of our hiccups and requests here. So I think the sewer system development fee, while yes, it would be paid regardless, you know, we were hoping that, you know, the fact that payment would come through with an approved project would be helpful, aside from the tax generations, to help with the sewer issue. So, questions?
Well, Reagan mentioned that you were open to a continuance, because I'll tell you my concern, and I think Jason enunciated it very clearly. I like your project. I think we all do. I mean, I haven't polled the group, but, you know, in terms of the areas of relief, I have no problems with any of those proposed areas of relief. Or, you know, obviously the traffic study with your project seems fine. It will be redone if and when the rest of the property is activated. All that's fine, but, you know, the sewer is a very tricky subject, because like Jason said, we've had others come here, whether it's Crescent, whether it's the Methodist Church and their proposed senior housing, and we say to them, hold on guys, you know, they're going through the exact same red, for lack of a better term, trouble area, to get to the wastewater treatment plant, and we're telling them, hold your horses, you know, get some more information, figure out an alternative route. And so I, like Jason, struggle with, all right, if that's what we tell the Methodist Church, if that's what we tell Crescent, then how do we go and turn around and say, it doesn't matter, we like the hotel, you know, have at it. That's what I struggle with. And so I don't want to turn you all down, but what will it take to get the information or figure out what needs to be done? Because I'm assuming if it's within reason, you all would do it, and we could go forward. But, you know, what will get us to the point where we might have a good sense of what that might be to be able to overcome this hurdle is what I'm struggling with. And so when you say you're open to a continuance, I mean, do you mean like 3 weeks, or you know, what sort of the range that you were contemplating?
Yeah, I mean, our team talked about that earlier today after I talked with Reagan. So honestly, we were hoping to break ground a year ago.
Well, I was hoping Wake Forest would make the Final Four this year.
I know. So we've already accepted the fact that we're behind the 8 ball. But sooner the better. I think going into this, I wasn't sure if y'all would. I figured a request of help as it was recommended would be brought up, and so I was trying to get a number. We are expecting our final or some numbers back at the end of this month. So around the 19th, week of the 19th of May. May. So at that point, we'll have a better grasp of kind of where our project sits money-wise, which will help us kind of play into that conversation. But again, I think that, yeah, I mean, really, I toss the question back. Like, at his conversation, it sounds like he's not really sure when we would know kind of what that cost is, or when y'all would know what that cost is to be able to come to us and say, would you be able to pay in X? But
Yeah, I think Jonathan and I have heard a couple of potential pathways to try to quantify what the issue is and what the impact would be. I was more in favor of the latter one,
Yes.
you know, because I think if you just, you know, you look to what your estimated usage is and you put a factor on that and you just say, this is what we're gonna throw at it.
It's no different than saying, well, we'll give $100,000 payment in lieu for the intersection. We have no idea whether that.
And not only that, but you set a standard for other applicants, right?
Mhm.
So I would be more in favor of getting a more refined estimate, you know, based on the proportional impact of the development on the system. That would be my suggestion.
Mhm.
I like the project. I think it's a wonderful idea. We definitely help the hospital and the surrounding, like Belmont Avenue, when they have graduation, I know that they struggle to find hotel rooms for that event.
And certainly the tax revenue.
Yes,
This
and
this is a great project, but we can't, we're all behind the eight ball.
Yeah. Because I struggle in good conscience to say, based on what we've told other projects, and knowing that we've got a big choke point right on the way, as much as I like it, how can I say, well, in this case, we'll make exceptions, it's something I really like. So, I would say, gosh,
But I mean, back to your point,
Yeah.
we don't.
well, I would think, I mean, we can do what we did, and then, you know, you all, at some point, you all might reach a point where you say, we gotta, you know, fish or cut bait or whatever, but, you know, we can do what we did with the, what we just did with the Crescent, and what we've done with Lakeview Farms, we can continue it, and then if we don't, you know, we're still missing some information, we can continue it again.
Yeah.
So I
would
would,
want to get, I mean,
yeah,
there's gotta be some work that needs to be, we're not talking about a month here, I don't think.
yeah, I was gonna say July or August,
Yeah.
but maybe August.
Yeah.
Parks and nothing said. Is August, I mean,
Is that a reasonable time frame for you guys? I mean, I know every day is.
yeah.
I understand.
I mean, is there any way to extend it to July, and then July's not prep, we can extend it to August at that point, or is that not?
What, 2 months?
I mean, I don't think it would cost us, you know, we've already done the majority of the hearing. All we need to really do is hear if there's any additional information before. June would be a bad, because we've got a bunch of stuff already in June, but, July,
I think it would be a stretch to probably get any meaningful results from, right? So I don't know, I mean, if you guys are willing to wait till, I just think it'll be a better use of your time. You know, we don't want you to come here and waste your time if we don't have any
Yeah.
information, new
We
information.
can say August, and if something comes before then, we'll give you a ring.
Parks, you could August.
Does that sound
is better.
good?
That works.
Perfect.
All right, and look, we're, you know, I apologize, we're all, you know, I think this is a great project. I know
Yeah.
Jason's on the Tourism Development Board, and we look forward to the, you know, the occupancy tax and the additional revenues it'll bring for tourism activities here in Belmont. And the hospital.
Great.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a great thing.
But I think you can also appreciate sort of the fix that we find ourselves in, and again, how can we tell other projects,
Right.
put on the brakes, and then full speed ahead with you all? I have a hard time squaring that circle myself. So, I will point out one other thing.
I can tell when you want me to.
What's that?
I can tell the projects that you told us we could go, and they can call me.
Well, that's all right. We won't talk business that way. I just wanted to point out, the applicant had his presentation. There was no one signed up for public comment at today's hearing. But based on what everyone has said, I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until the August 4th regular city council meeting. Is that sufficient?
enough time, Miles?
I sure hope so. I don't know, it's a lot of work to do smoke tests and then determine where the problems are, and then do engineering studies, and then cost estimate that, but August is definitely better than July.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, given the competing considerations, I think that's fair. If we're not in the position we need to be in August, we can revisit like we have with Crescent and Lakeview Farms before it. But given you all's desire to, try and move forward as expeditiously as possible, in our considerations to get that information, we'll shoot for August, and if we can't,
Okay, but, for the comp plan update, I'm looking at Reagan and now, when was that gonna be approved by council? Is that,
So,
the reason I ask, is that this Lucid model is gonna do the thing that you're talking about, I believe, and so, but it's not gonna be finalized until we finalize the comp plan. So if the comp plan's in July, then August is a good date. If it's in August, then it's probably gonna be like a September date for them.
right, so our schedule right now is this is actually a great segue. We are having our final open house for the comp plan next Tuesday, across the street at the City Rec Center, and all community members are welcome to attend. But during that meeting, we will also, Tiffany's going to be handing out postcards that are advertising that open house event. This was, part of your regularly scheduled programming. But we will also, as part of that meeting, be holding a joint session, a joint meeting of City Council and the Planning Board, and our consultants will be giving an update. So that'll be kind of the presentation of the draft plan, and then pending the feedback that the consultants receive from City Council and Planning Board about the degree of edits needed, we're hopeful that we would be able to bring the final plan to Planning Board in June, and then to Council in July. That's our hope right now.
I'll support it.
So ideally, although I will say I believe that the Lucid model is the tool that Eddie has been using already to kind of feed in these development projects. The Lucid model, for context, has the ability to take existing system capacity and existing flows that have been measured, and then you can add in projected or requested flows for new proposed projects to anticipate what that would impact and how that new flow would hit the system for different development projects. So you can do that on a project-by-project basis within that model, which is, I believe, how the impacts to the system have been estimated for this project. You can also do it on kind of a zone or a catch basin by catch basin basis based on projected, build out. And so for the comp plan, that's more so what we are going to be looking at through the Lucid model, and what Eddie's working on is, if we were to build to full capacity of mixed-use development in these areas, single-family residential in these areas, commercial in those areas, what would our system look like, and where would we need targeted upgrades versus where would we be okay maybe with the infrastructure we have today.
But you're still not anticipating access to that kind of modeling until...
My understanding is Eddie has it now and is using it now to estimate the impacts. I think it might have been Jonathan who mentioned it. Someone mentioned it earlier that the system the Lucid model already has the existing flows in it. So it's more, what we're finalizing for the comp plan is the analysis of those projected land uses. But to my knowledge, the model is ready today to play around with some of those impacts from specific projects.
Right, the flow is in there. The exact cost to update the system, those
Right.
engineering costs are the things that we need to have studied.
Yes.
It might show that, there's a pipe this big, we need it this big, we don't know the cost of that. So that's where Withers and
Yes.
Eddie needs to come back and say, to replace an X number of linear feet of this size pipe costs this amount of money. So that's kind of the thing I'm looking for.
Yeah.
After the model and the comp plan is when you will have to do.
Yeah, and that's, that information, he'll be putting that information in as well. I believe that's what I understand from Withers and talking about last week.
Yes, that's correct. So I apologize. It's the financial side of things and the estimation of the upgrading infrastructure, making system upgrades. That yes, will be part of that broader comp plan release as well. But ideally by July, August, when we bring the plan to you all, ideally that information will be ready.
So questions from Charlie as to whether we want the August regular meeting or the August workshop?
The August workshop will give us give you guys a couple extra weeks.
I mean, I'll leave it up to, I can do either one, I think.
Probably more, I mean, just for me, probably more available on the 4th for the regular meeting. I mean, there's a chance I'm going to be for the 18th for the workshop.
I mean,
But,
yeah,
I mean, if that's what works for
yeah,
most of us, then.
I don't know.
I'll just make a motion for the 4th and continue it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think I did ask for a motion.
But I don't know if you got.
I don't know if anyone made it.
So, verbiage.
I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until the August 4th regular city council meeting.
So moved.
Motion made by Jason, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the hearing is continued. So we do not need to make a motion to come out of public hearing because we're continuing the public hearing.
Correct.
All right, thank you. That brings us to C5, which is consider approval of an ordinance for ZA 2025-01, Residence Inn, a request to rezone a 23.5 acre site to highway commercial conditional district to accommodate a 107 suite hotel on a 4.1 acre portion of the site. Given that we have continued the public hearing, I would entertain a motion to continue this item to the August 4th regular city council meeting as well.
Motion to continue item C5 to the August 4th regular meeting.
Motion made by Jason, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that item is continued as well. I will point out that we have a red line version of the conditions. I made some proposed changes just to highlight to my earlier point that if and when we approve the change in zoning, the conditions would apply to the entire property unless we indicated that it only applies to the residence in portion. And so the proposed changes were just to indicate that these were to the residence in only portion, not the whole property. But we can revisit that at the appropriate time. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you very much.
Barry?
Thank you very much.
Yes, good job. All right, so that brings us to D, reports. Are there any reports? Okay, no reports. That brings us to E, the city manager's favorite portion of the meeting, other business. Charlie, you can start.
I just want to say thank you to all the staff that had a hand in the Easter events and the Garibaldi Fest. The Easter event was phenomenal. Thank you to all the volunteers that helped make that happen. And that's about all I got. Short and sweet.
Thank you. Catherine.
The only thing I have is, during the farmer's market last Thursday, the cars were directed to drive around the tree and kind of wedge in between the fence and the tree.
What tree?
You mean the vendors?
Yeah, the vendors. And, well, there's only one tree when you're going in from Myrtle. You have to get around the curve, to go around the fountain, to go up to Main Street.
Yes.
You can't cut through where it's kind of been drove over and bare for so long.
Oh, yeah.
So what they're directing us to do is go, us, meaning the other vendors, I don't go that way. But they're going behind the tree and wedging in between the fence. Somebody's gonna hit the fence. We need to just keep it straight like we have been, or we're gonna end up costing us more money than it's worth because it's so tight. So tight. And I saw it, I actually just directed them to go through the dirt. So if anybody complains, I did say that, but it was close calls several times, and I just thought it was wise. So maybe find out with Summer, I believe. That's all I got.
Okay. Jason.
Many thanks to Cassidy and her staff for Garibaldi Fest and Easter event. It was a tremendous success. I think we had a bigger crowd from what I saw this year than we've ever had. So, yeah, gotten some really good news reports back from feedback from citizens for various staff in different departments, so that's really encouraging to see, and glad to hear things are going so well internally. Also want to thank our volunteers at several of the local schools, South Point High School, Belmont Middle School, Page Elementary, and North Belmont Elementary. And Jim and I got to participate with Keep Belmont Beautiful this week with some projects that the students had used their grants from Keep Belmont Beautiful to do various projects around their schools, whether it's building picnic tables or recycle bins. I'm not sure what you were able to see at Page and North Belmont. Maybe you can speak to that. But the last thing, this is more of a question, I guess, Miles, to you. When we were at the middle school, apparently the principal there said that there's still a lot of folks that sing deliveries that go to the old middle school because the signage is still up on the Central Avenue location. I'm not sure if the owner would be open to possibly removing that signage because apparently a lot of deliveries and just people in general, if they're thinking they're going to go to the Belmont Middle School, that's where they end up. So I'm not sure if they would be open to that. If that would be helpful. That's all. Thanks.
Reminds me, I was heard a story once about when I was in law school. A couple of Maryland fans come down for a Maryland Wake Forest basketball game, and they were in Wake Forest asking where the game was instead of Winston-Salem. It's about 50 years too late, but in any event.
A couple hours away.
Yes. So I have a couple of things. First of all, thank you to Cassidy, our downtown director, not only for the organization of all the great events that we've had so far, but also for her tenure as the deputy clerk, the interim clerk, however you want to phrase it. We have Laura, who's very capably handling the duties on her own, but thank you to Cassidy for her efforts in the meantime to help bridge the gap, and she did a very good job. Speaking of signs, I was advised that the sign at Reed Park was damaged, and so it is being replaced. I think it's going to be moved higher up the hill, and I think we're even going to be adding a second sign elsewhere at the park to identify it as Reed Park. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. Down towards the corner where the ball field is, the one Reed Park sign was towards the basketball courts, and we're going to bring that back up the hill, possibly right there for you now.
Okay. So, but I had a couple of
Would that be an issue getting out of the parking lot? Is that sign gonna block visibility?
Not sure. We hadn't really placed where it needs to go yet. There was a discussion in the bay that we're going to in there. We'll try to make sure that it doesn't block the views.
I just had some concerns expressed as to the whereabouts of the sign, so I wanted to be clear on that. If we read our weekly reports, there seems to be a spate of car break-ins or attempted car break-ins at some of our hotels, and I think also in my neighborhood at Stowe Point, there's been some recent car break-ins, so just everyone be vigilant and lock your cars at night. And I know the police are working on those cases as well. Had some complaints over the last couple of months when there hasn't been a burn ban in effect about open burning of yard waste on a property in the county that is affecting air quality in Belmont Village. I don't know if there's anything we can do about that since the property's in the county, but it's just been raised a couple of times. So to the extent there's anything we can do, that would help those residents, I'm sure. The open house next Tuesday, May 13th at the rec center from 5 to 6:30, a last chance to provide feedback on the comprehensive land use plan update. Tiffany and Reagan mentioned that just a few minutes ago. And then the last item is, of course, today is the first day of the new waste yes, collection route. So was the switchboard inundated with calls and compliments as to the smooth running of the operation? I guess we'll wait and see.
We can ask what works, but I have not received any complaints or seen anything
living so far in the back, he's like almost in another country. I don't know if I want to ask him to. Any smooth sailing with the new routes so far? Good. All right, excellent. But, don't forget, everyone, changes this week. I know I've got to put my trash out tomorrow instead of Thursday night, so just keep that in mind. And there's, you can go to the city website and follow the links and see what your new day is and what week your recycling is. That's all I have.
I did want to say that, I just received a text message that our live stream is working beautifully. They can see my toes wiggling and all the things that we're doing. So thank you, Deb, for having the live stream working live and well.
Yes. All right, yes, thank you. All right, anything from the city manager?
No, sir.
All right, if that's the case, I need a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143, 318, 11A3, to consult with the city attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege, and pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143, 318, 11A5, to establish the position to be taken in negotiating the price and other material terms of proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase or exchange. Motion made by Jason, seconded by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, we'll go into closed session in a few minutes while we clear the room and take a brief break.